Welcome to the second video tutorial in which I'm looking at making a photo frame, and in the first I introduced my idea. Here's my exploded isometric drawing of my acrylic and PET photo frame, and I explained in that video about the different parts, and I then moved on and I created this CAD file. So if you've not done that, you might want to go back to video A in this series. But in this video now, part B, what I'm going to do is first of all show you what I've achieved, and then explain how it's been put together, and then finally actually show you how to do all that in TechSoft 2D. So here we go. First things first. So here's actually my drawing on the document camera, and this is my photo frame completely finished. So hopefully you can get an idea of what this looks like. I've got the base of the photo frame here has been line bent using a hot wire strip heater. Basically I've warmed up the plastic to about 165 degrees Celsius, so well, not quite that, 130, 140, so it starts to become malleable, flexible. I've then bent it through an angle of roughly 110 degrees. That gives me the base that now the photo frame sits on. And then here's my window where the photograph would be placed, and in the top here I've got a little slit for the photo to go. So here's a suitable picture, and hopefully you can see that I can just slide that in the top there. Now I'm not going to push it all the way in just yet, but as you can see that would slide down and that would fill that space. So I will be doing that shortly once I just explain one or two more things. Now if you can't quite see how this relates to this, then what I'm going to do is show the actual parts that have been laser cut. So that's this front section, and just notice here that it is actually the same height and the same width as the isometric drawing. Next I've got part B, which is the window, and it's got a protective piece of plastic on here which I'm now going to partly peel off. So hopefully, in fact no, I'll take it all the way off. There we are. So that shows you the protective window, which hopefully you can just see there. Then we've got part C, which is this little cutout, and again in this case I will leave the protective plastic on, and what I want to show you here is the fact that this picture fits perfectly inside there. And then finally I've got the backing piece, part D. So hopefully you can see there how all of those parts have been created separately. Now it's important to point out here that I've had to do two laser cutting processes here. What I've done are parts A and D from, in this particular case, opaque blue acrylic, and then I've done parts B, hopefully you can see that there, and C from our PET, so our thermo plastic polymer. So that's the process I've been through, two processes. And so what I've actually had to do with my CAD file is split it into two separate sub-files for separate laser cutting, but I will explain that in more detail shortly. What I think I'll do at this point in time is stop here. Let's go back to TechSoft 2D and let's have a see how we're actually going to configure this file to do everything that I want it to do. So here's our CAD file. Let me think about this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on some blue lines. The blue lines are going to indicate exactly where I want to cut. So let's therefore come to the contouring tool. Let's put a contour spacing here of 0. It's going to be a toolpath contour in this particular case. Doesn't make much difference because the spacing is 0 anyway, but well, we'll stick with the toolpath. I'm also going to change the color here to blue. It has to be this blue down here. This means it's going to be cutting. Okay, now let's actually start to indicate where I want to cut. Now I could start by clicking on the external face of this frame here, but if I click there and then I click the internal face, it will cut the external, then the internal face in that order. And thinking about it, I probably want to cut this internal window here before I cut out the rest of the design, because otherwise this design could move somehow, vibrations, airflow. So I'm going to undo that, and this is not mission critical, but it's just a good suggestion. Okay, I'm going to do this window first, then I'm going to do this external profile, and then let's click on here. This is part B, part C, part D. So I've just added a blue toolpath contour. Now, of course, what you could have done instead, you could have just selected the original black profile and changed the color of the line to blue. You could have done that. It will be exactly the same. The only difference between this and this is that this is a solid shape. Oh, look, I've got to make sure I've got gridlock turned on, and now I've lost my connection and I've lost my alignment to the grid. I'm going to escape that. Gridlock on. Let's do that again. This is one piece, whereas down here what I've got are two pieces. So you might turn around and say, well, that's more efficient. Why do I have two pieces here? Well, for me, I like the idea of having my original black profile for my design and then adding a blue cutout over the top. For me, it makes it it's a clearer manufacturing process, and there are certain projects where actually it's useful to keep the original design and the toolpath contour separate. So let's just undo that last step there. Let's just bring this in. Remember, you can only undo once in TechSoft 2D. And up here, I'm going to change that color back to black, and I'm going to do a 0mm toolpath contour, yep, in blue around the outside. Okay, looking great. So let's just think now about how I'm going to separate this. Oh no, there's one more thing I forgot to do. Let me just come back to my document camera, and I'm just going to bring in the acrylic that I laser cut here for the front frame, and you probably can't see it very well. Maybe you can see it just there. There's a tiny mark there which I've laser engraved onto the front face of the acrylic. Any idea what it's for? There's another one over there. Hopefully you've realized that that indicates the line that I want to line bend on. So I need to add those markings into TechSoft 2D. Hopefully you can just see them there as the light passes overhead. Okay, back into TechSoft 2D. Now I've got a dotted line here, but of course it's black, so I can't, it won't be laser cut. So let me just get a small line here in red. Always work with these colors down here for laser cutting. And I'm going to do, with the gridlock turned on, a small 5mm dash there and a small 5mm dash there. I'm not going to worry about going all the way across. I just need to have some indicator on the edges as to where I'm going to bend this using the hot wire strip heater. Okay, back to media. You can just see the red lines in place there, and that's now good to go. Right, okay, let's now look at how we're going to separate this. Now, before I start moving things around, remember that I've got these as separate profiles. What I need to, the blue external contour and a black external contour, what I want to do is group them together. So I'm going to put a bounding box, click and drag a bounding box around this part, and I'm going to go to Edit, and Group, or Control and G. So I've grouped that one. Here, I'm going to go to the keyboard and press Control G. Here, I'm going to go keyboard Control G, and finally over here. Now notice it was quite difficult to pick that up there. I can always go from the bottom right. This is going to be Control and G, and that now means I can click on these, move them, and even though there's actually two external profiles there, it moves it as one object. Down here, there's multiple lines there, it moves it as one object. Makes life much, much easier. I want to have part A and part D, and of course part B and D are exactly the same. I want to have A and D in blue opaque acrylic. So I'm going to just temporarily move that to the side. I've always got gridlock turned on here. I'm going to bring this in, and I'm going to take that out to the side. Now what I would do at this point is I would save this as something like PhotoFrame, let's have a see, PhotoFrame acrylic version. I'm going to call this version 2. So I know, oh, and as well, let me just put my initials in here. Okay, so normally I'd put my surname in there completely. Just for this video, I'll put my initials, and that now means that I know that that's going to be for the for laser cutting out of acrylic. Now let's just shift and select both of those, bring that across to the side over here, bring these in. I'm always just giving a 5mm margin around the outside here. bring it into there, right against the edge, nice and neat and tidy, and let's just save this as PETG. Okay, so now I know where these need to be sent to, and that now means that I can organize this with other people's photo frames in a group. Anything that wants to be cut from PET, we can add to this CAD file, and anything that we want to have added to, let me see, an acrylic, cut out from the same acrylic, I can add to this file over here. So if I have a look here, let me just minimize this, let me just get rid of that, and let me just bring this across to the left. If I have a look at this, then, oh, even better to the right, and I have a look at what I've had laser cut here, hopefully you can see the matchup. And if I have a look at, dearie me, come on, I want that. Where is it? I want you over here. Thank you very much. And if I have a look at this, then hopefully if I move those acrylic pieces to the side, you can see how those have also been laser cut. In fact, when I laser cut it out of interest, I actually had it the other way around. So hopefully you can see here how that has come out of this sheet, and there's my piece down there. So I actually had these the other way round. Let me just do that now to make sure it's absolutely crystal clear. This needs to come up to here, and I had it with this one down there. Okay, so I hope that's all making sense. Now there's just one or two more things I need to mention here, and then I think we can wrap this video up. And what I want to do, I'm just going to minimize that there. What I want to do is just first of all talk about one or two mistakes that I made, and then I want to test the actual product live with you. So very, very briefly, the mistakes that I made with this, or the main mistake I made with it, was that I'd been touching with my fingers, obviously, which are a bit sticky, this clear PET sheet here, and as a result it's got some fingerprints on it. Now any fingerprints on the external face I can wipe off, but some of the fingerprints are actually trapped inside, because remember what we're doing with this is we are going to be sticking it. Let me just take this off here. Okay, oh come on. Typical. We are going to be sticking this window on top of this U-shaped profile, which is going to stick onto here. So that creates my backing section, so that I can then get my picture of my pussycat and I can slide it in. Now hopefully you can see here with the light shining on the plastic that plastic is in front of the pussycat, and that would just slide all the way in there. And of course what I've done is I've touched this window with my fingers and not cleaned it before sticking it all together. So that was a mistake, and of course once it's stuck I can't clean inside this face. And then of course the front frame goes over the top, and then I'm going to, once I've stuck it, I'm then going to line bend it. Notice as well here I've still got the protective plastic on the back of the blue acrylic, and this also needs to be peeled off before I glue it together. So that is a mistake on my part in terms of making sure this is a really nice finish. Now the last thing I want to test here before I finish is whether or not I can get the picture out. So I've not done this yet. I'm going to pop this in as far as it'll go. Notice it's stuck. Doesn't go any further. Now can I tap this down? And yes I can. There we are. That is now in position. That's looking absolutely perfect. What a super cute cat. But can I get the picture out? Come on. Okay, let me just get something else. Just perhaps tap it on here. Oh dear. Houston, we have a problem, and that is that once, oh look, it's starting to go. You can hear me whacking it away here. Dearie me. Come on. Okay, let me just try and use something else here to knock this onto. No, you know what? I'm sure there's a way I could do this. Perhaps I could get some tweezers in there, or I could just keep working this through, or I could perhaps knock it onto the edge of something like this. Not my hand necessarily. But that is proving to be a wee bit of a problem to get out. So in terms of a photo frame where I can easily pull out the picture, this is not really doing what I want it to do. Maybe there's a solution you could come up to try and overcome that. It's actually got slightly wonky. I don't know whether you can see that in the frame there. And that might be why it's not going any. Ah, yes, look at that. That was the problem. It got jammed, it was a bit wonky, I leveled it off and out it came. So it can get removed, but it's by no means an easy thing to do. So there we are, that is one way that we can make a photo frame. And incidentally, when I glued this together, I used a product called Tensile Cement, and when you come, or if you choose to use this technique, when you come to that stage, I can help you with that. It is a system that needs teacher supervision because it is actually a chemical that can cause irritation to the skin. But there you go. I hope you found that useful, and I hope that you have an opportunity to perhaps have a go at this kind of photo frame yourself.